The Peace and Hope Trust has been working alongside the Nicaraguan people since 1991, dedicated to reaching those not served by others in one of the poorest countries in Latin America. Born out of a spirit of radical service, the Trust is founded on an unshakable belief that Christian people, young and old, with no particular professional skills, but with faith, determination and a thumping heart for serving the poor, can achieve truly amazing things.
She's very happy about that.
Good.
We're going to build her a house.
And here we are in La Barra, where there's a...
The driving force behind the Trust is Squadron Leader Mike Cole and his wife Jackie. The formal creation of the Peace and Hope Trust represents the culmination of a number of different aspects of work, service and adventure led by Mike Cole over many years. To really understand the history of the Trust and the nature of its ethos, we must travel back in time to 1985 and to the jungles of Peru. At this time, Mike Cole had been volunteered by the RAF to lead Operation Rally in Peru, giving hundreds of young people experience of service overseas. Tragedy struck the Presbyterian Church in this region when government soldiers searching for members of the terrorist organisation Shining Path entered a church and brutally shot 6 of the church elders. Pastor Walter Anaya escaped, and it was he who subsequently asked Mike to help set up a refugee village for the widows and children and other victims of the military conflict. As Operation Rally was reaching its end, Mike responded to this desperate plea by recruiting the most dedicated individuals from his rally teams, along with 7 members of his own church and immediate family. At this time, the received wisdom was that only people with professional skills and a long period of preparation and training would be able to make a valuable contribution to service overseas. High up in the remote northern jungle of Peru, over a period of months, the team helped to build a safe haven, installing a water supply, and building several bridges in extremely difficult circumstances. But when the bridges were formally opened by the British ambassador, he was amazed at the achievements of the relatively unskilled British volunteers. On a return visit some years later, Mike found Psalm 133 inscribed on one of the bridges. How good and pleasant it is when brothers live together in unity. The remote jungle camp was named Paz y Esperanza, or Peace and Hope. This project marks the genesis of the Peace and Hope Trust, but it would not have been possible without doors being opened as a result of even earlier adventures that had led Mike to Peru. Back in 1982, Mike was setting up a joint services hovercraft expedition to the Amazon in Peru, but it was postponed due to the Falklands conflict. At the end of that conflict, the expedition went ahead, and President Belaúnde's personal interest meant that the project became instrumental in helping to restore relations between Peru and Great Britain.
Today it was my pleasure to have these people here to tell them how grateful we are that they took the time and the efforts to come here and to camp in the Peruvian jungle. It helped so many of our people with medical care and also help us explore our own country.
Setback turned into triumph, and Mike was warmly received at the Peruvian Presidential Palace and later honoured at Buckingham Palace. The Peace and Hope Refugee Project also set the tone for a type of service which was radical, sometimes risky, undeterred by adversity, and squarely aimed at reaching those not served by others. In 1986, Mike took early retirement from the RAF to respond to the challenge of setting up a rally for young Christians, and the Latin Link STEP program was born. Over the following decade, Mike oversaw many STEP projects, which inspired thousands of youngsters to pick up the gauntlet of radical service, even including a team led by Mike's son Nick in Argentina, when technically we were still at war. In 1991, Mike ventured for the first time into Nicaragua. After 10 years of civil war, President Doña Violeta Chamorro was unexpectedly elected as a President of Reconciliation. Violeta invited the STEP program to get involved in the program of reconstruction in her country, starting with the establishment of a school for the poorest street children in central Managua. The Noah's Ark School was the first of 7 schools built in subsequent years. The work expanded into other areas of the country and established strong links with Bluefields on the isolated Caribbean coast. This connection with Bluefields paved the way for another adventurous project when in 1993 President Violeta invited Mike to realise her late husband's dream of uniting this isolated coastal region with the rest of the country. The resulting high-profile hovercraft communications project along the Rio San Juan generated a huge amount of excitement and goodwill towards the volunteers who took part, and opened yet more doors to the work of what became formally the Peace and Hope Trust in 1995, and earned the Trust a Presidential Medal of Merit. Today, the Trust has its headquarters in Managua. Casa Mary Jane was built using materials which are often just thrown away, namely rice straw bales and eucalyptus poles. The structure demonstrates that it is possible to build a high-quality building, which is not only low cost, but whose design is inherently resistant to the earthquakes frequently felt in Nicaragua. The Trust continues its long-standing support for projects in Bluefields, funding educational, medical and nutritional work amongst the poorest of the poor. The desperate poverty in Bluefields was witnessed by former MP Peter Kilfoyle at the end of his fundraising trek across Nicaragua in 2007.
It is a rubbish heap. There are dogs, there are pigs, there are vultures, there are legions of flies. This little boy here on my right, he's in his bare feet, he's eating something he just picked up off the floor. It's dreadful. It's just a dreadful, dreadful place.
Further up the Caribbean coast, and following the vision of hovercraft veteran Ken Pollard, the Trust has expanded its work into La Barra and the surrounding area, building a renewable energy station, hurricane shelter and rice mill, and carried out numerous medical and dental programs with the local population. More recently, the Trust acquired a hilltop farm in the fertile highland region of Matagalpa. Top quality coffee is grown and sold to raise funds for the Trust, along with a wealth of other produce. The new Eco-Lodge will enable the Trust to train local farmers in sustainable, eco-friendly farming techniques, and the moringa tree, or miracle tree as it's locally known, is the latest addition. The Trust has begun distributing moringa seedlings to the community as a way of sharing the benefits of greatly improved nutrition, both locally and beyond. Since 1985, over 3,000 young people have taken a step of faith, working hand in hand with those in greatest need, on projects run by Mike Cole and the Peace and Hope Trust. In recent years, the volunteer teams have diversified to include a much wider age range. Age is no barrier to getting involved. So whether it's rescuing children from a life of misery on the street or the rubbish dump, or exploring new ways to improve the health and well-being of remote rural communities, the radical spirit of the original Peace and Hope camp in Peru lives on. The tangible benefits on the ground are many: the schools, the clinics, the farm produce. But an equally important legacy of the Trust's transforming work is to be found in the lives of the many volunteers whose experience has led them to continue that spirit of radical service in their personal and professional lives for many years afterwards. Early pioneers from the very first Peace and Hope camp in Peru are now in positions of leadership all over the world. To name but a few, Nick Cole is now Director of Mobilization at OMF. Carolyn Cole spent several years serving in the favelas of Brazil before becoming a teacher at All Nations Mission Bible College. Peter Ferenczi, now a youth leader in the Anglican Church and still building, this time in Romania. And Andy Lines, then a young captain in the British Army, now Canon Andy Lines, Director of Crosslinks. Former STEP team member Alison Caligari went on to head a mission school in Senegal before joining the Trust's management team. Veterans from the Nicaraguan projects include David Coates, now Head of Grants at World Vision UK, and many other volunteers along the way, whose experience and opportunities with the Peace and Hope Trust have helped shape their careers. The challenge for the future is to continue that radical vision, always to step out in faith and walk alongside the poor and the hungry, to keep the light of peace and hope burning as brightly as ever, now and always.